Pregnant and homeless, she was run over and rescued by a millionaire man, and through that, she found love. The sky was tinged with grey that late afternoon, with clouds threatening an imminent rain. Andrea walked slowly down the sidewalk, holding her protruding 7-month belly. Her face showed signs of tiredness and suffering, marks of a life full of challenges. She was a strong woman, but at that moment, the struggle seemed more than she could bear. Carrying a few belongings and broken dreams in her worn backpack, Andrea tried to find shelter for the approaching night. On the other side of the avenue, Dominic drove his luxury car, a shiny and imposing machine that seemed to be an extension of his life, perfect on the outside, but full of internal pressures. He was talking on the phone, distracted, trying to solve problems at work that seemed to have no end. "Yes, I said I'll fix it tomorrow. Don't call me again today," he said irritably as he turned off his cell phone and threw it on the passenger seat. Andrea, looking both ways, began to cross the street. Her steps were slow, weighed down by the weight of her pregnancy and her accumulated fatigue. A horn sounded in the distance, but she was lost in her own thoughts. The sidewalk seemed as far away as her dreams of a better life. Dominic, on the other hand, looked between the dashboard and the rearview mirror, preoccupied with the messages that kept arriving on his phone. In a moment of distraction, he didn't notice Andrea crossing. When he looked up, it was already too late. The impact was brief, but devastating. Andrea fell to the ground, instinctively protecting her belly with her arms. Dominic braked suddenly, the sound of the tires screaming against the asphalt echoing through the street. An eerie silence took over the place for a few seconds. Dominic got out of the car, still in shock. "My God, what have I done?" he whispered, running to Andrea. He knelt down beside her, his heart pounding wildly. "Are you okay? I didn't see you. Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Andrea looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears, but also with determination. "My baby. Please take care of my baby," she said weakly before fainting. Dominic held his cell phone in his shaking hands as he dialed the emergency number. He paced back and forth next to Andrea, who was lying on the asphalt, breathing heavily. "Please send an ambulance immediately. It's a woman who's 7 months pregnant. She's been hit by a car. No, she's still breathing, but she's unconscious. Hurry, please." He hung up and knelt down beside her, trying to stay calm. "Stay with me, please. You're going to be okay. You and the baby too," Dominic whispered, feeling completely helpless. He stared at her belly, trying not to imagine the worst. A few curious onlookers began to gather, whispering among themselves. One of them, a middle-aged man, approached. "Do you know her?" he asked, looking suspiciously at Dominic. "No, I don't," he answered quickly, still kneeling beside Andrea. "But that doesn't matter. I'm responsible for this, and I'm going to take care of her." The ambulance's siren broke the silence of the scene a few minutes later. Pulling up alongside, the paramedics quickly got out, bringing equipment and a stretcher. Dominic stepped back, allowing them to take control. "She was hit by a car. She's 7 months pregnant. She fell protecting her belly. I don't know what condition the baby is in," he explained urgently. The paramedics began to examine Andrea. One of them looked at Dominic. "Are you familiar with her?" Dominic hesitated for a moment but answered firmly, "No, but I'm going with her. I'm not going to leave her alone." Without a word of argument, the paramedics let him into the ambulance. He sat next to Andrea, watching as they checked her vital signs and monitored the baby. "What about the baby? Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice thick with anguish. "Her signs are stable for now, but we need to get her to the hospital right away for a full checkup," one of the paramedics replied, trying to reassure him. Dinner kept looking at Andrea, who remained unconscious. He had never felt so vulnerable. "I don't know who you are," he murmured, almost to himself, "but I promise I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. You won't be going through this alone." The hospital was a whirlwind of movement and sound. Nurses and doctors rushed to stabilize Andrea and check on the baby. Dominic followed close behind, refusing to leave her alone, even when the staff asked him to wait outside. "I need to know if she and the baby are okay. Please," he insisted, his voice filled with genuine concern. After a few hours of waiting, a doctor finally appeared in the waiting room. "Are you related to her?" asked the man in the white coat, holding a clipboard. "No. I am responsible for what happened," Dominic replied, avoiding the disapproving look he felt coming from the doctor. "But I will take care of her. How is she? And the baby?" "She is in stable condition now. Fortunately, the impact was not severe enough to put the baby at immediate risk, but she will need complete rest for some time. She suffered a fractured leg, which will be immobilized. Besides that, she is exhausted, physically and emotionally." Dominic sighed in relief, but the weight of responsibility did not diminish. He was allowed to see her as soon as she woke up. Entering the room, he found Andrea lying on the bed, her eyes half closed, struggling to understand where she was. "You're in the hospital," Dominic said softly, approaching the bed. "It was an accident, but you and the baby are fine. That's what matters." Andrea blinked a few times, trying to get her bearings. "The baby? Is he really okay?" she asked, her voice shaking and full of anxiety. "Yes, he is," Dominic replied, leaning forward slightly so she could see him better. "You're not alone anymore. I know this sounds confusing right now, but I'm going to take care of everything. You need a safe place to recover." The next morning, Andrea was transferred from the hospital to Dominic's mansion. The car that took them there cut through the city, leaving behind the streets where she had survived for months. Sitting in the back seat, Andrea watched out the window, but her mind was elsewhere, lost in thought. The cast on her leg was a constant reminder of the accident and the fact that her life now depended on the kindness of a complete stranger. When the car pulled up in front of the huge gates that opened automatically, Andrea felt a knot form in her stomach. Dominic's mansion looked like a castle straight out of a fairy tale. The gardens were immaculate and the facade was imposing, with white columns and giant windows. It was a place that seemed to belong to another world, far from everything she knew. Dominic got out first, coming around the car to help her. "Here we are," he said with a welcoming smile, holding out his hand to her. "This will be your home while you recover." Andrea hesitated before accepting help. When she got out of the car, she felt the weight of insecurity. I don't know if I should be here," she murmured. "This is all so too much. I don't belong here." Dominic stopped and looked directly at her. "Andrea, listen. You've been through more than anyone should. This house may seem extravagant, but what matters is that you're safe. And as long as I can, I'll make sure you and your baby have everything you need. Don't think of it as charity, but as a second chance." She nodded slightly, still at a loss for words. As he helped her inside, Andrea felt each step like a struggle between the desire to accept help and the fear of becoming a burden. Inside the mansion, the entrance hall was even more impressive, with gleaming marble floors and a chandelier that seemed to illuminate the room with the light of 1,000 stars. Doña Amelia, the housekeeper, came to greet them. "Mr. Dominic, everything is ready in the guest room, and this must be Miss Andrea." The older lady had a warm smile, which made Andrea relax a little. "Thank you," Andrea replied shyly, feeling small in the face of such hospitality. Dominic led her to the room he had prepared for her. It was spacious, with a king-size bed, elegant furniture, and a view of the garden. "Here, you can rest and recover," he said. "If you need anything, just ask." As Andrea sat up in bed, shifting her weight with difficulty because of her cast, she couldn't hold back her tears. "I don't know how to thank you for this. It's more than I've ever had in my entire life. Dominic knelt beside her, gently holding her hand. You don't need to thank me. Just focus on being okay. And remember, you're not alone anymore. Those words echoed in Andrea's heart. For the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for the future. That afternoon, as Andrea settled into her new room, Dominic went over to check on her. He found her sitting on the bed, looking out the window at the flower garden, lost in thought. The silence in the room was almost palpable until Andrea spoke, without looking at him. Dominic, all this that you're doing for me, I don't know how to repay you. In fact, I don't even know if I should accept it. It feels wrong. Dominic approached, pulling out a chair to sit next to her. Why do you think this is wrong, Andrea? He asked, his voice calm and steady. She sighed, turning to face him. Because it feels like charity. And I don't want to be a burden to anyone. I've lived my life depending on others, and that never brought anything good. I don't want you to feel obligated to help me. Dominic leaned forward slightly, folding his hands and resting his elbows on his knees. Andrea, listen carefully to me. What happened to you was my fault. I was distracted. I caused that accident. The least I can do is make sure you and your baby have the support you need. That's not charity. It's responsibility. And more than that, it's humanity. Andrea blinked, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. But why go to such lengths? You could have just called the ambulance and moved on with your life. No one would have judged you for that. Dominic hesitated for a moment, as if considering his answer. Maybe I could, but something about you made me stop. I saw the strength in your eyes, even after everything that happened. I saw someone who fights, who doesn't give up, even when the world falls apart around them. And Andrea, I want to help you rebuild your life. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Andrea's eyes began to water, but she quickly looked away, trying to hold back the tears. It's hard to believe that someone could be so generous. Maybe because you've met so many people who weren't, Dominic replied softly. But here, now, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're safe, that your baby is okay, and that you have a chance to start over. I just need you to believe that, as much as I do. Andrea took a deep breath, absorbing each word. It's hard to trust, but I'll try. Dominic smiled, standing up and placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. That's all I ask. The rest, we'll figure it out together. As he left the room, Andrea sat in silence, reflecting. For the first time in a long time, she felt like there was someone in the world willing to be by her side, not out of obligation, but out of choice. And that, more than anything else, began to rekindle a small spark of hope in her heart. The days passed, and Andrea began to adjust, albeit hesitantly, to life in Dominic's mansion. Her leg was still immobilized, but she forced herself to move, refusing to stay in bed all the time. One day, while she was looking out at the garden from the balcony, Dominic appeared, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. I thought you might like a snack. The garden is most beautiful in the late afternoon, with the golden light, he said, placing the tray on a nearby table. Thank you, but you don't have to bother, Andrea replied, with a polite but restrained smile. Dominic pulled out a chair and sat down next to her. It's not a bother. In fact, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you. I've noticed that you've been more reserved. Is it okay to talk about it? Andrea hesitated, looking down at her hands. After an uncomfortable silence, she looked up. Dominic, I appreciate everything you're doing, but to be honest, I don't need your pity. I don't want you to see me as weak or pitiful. Dominic frowned, clearly taken aback. Mate, hold on. Pitying you has nothing to do with pity or weakness. That was never my intention. But it feels that way, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. I survived on the streets for months. No one gave me a second glance, and now, suddenly, I'm here, surrounded by luxury, and I feel like I'm out of place. Like this is all temporary. Like I could be discarded at any moment. There was a heaviness in the air as the two stared at each other. Dominic sighed, leaning forward with his elbows resting on his knees. Andrea, I understand that you're used to fighting on your own, and that just shows how strong you are. But here, you don't have to carry the world alone. And don't mistake what I'm doing for empty compassion. I'm here because I want to be. Because I believe that no one deserves to go through what you've gone through, especially when they're pregnant. She looked away, as if absorbing his words was an effort. I don't want to depend on anyone. I don't want to feel vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't weakness, Andrea. It's courage. Admitting that we need help is an act of strength, and you're stronger than you think. The tension in the air remained, but Dominic's words seemed to strike a chord deep within Andrea. She didn't respond right away, but her posture relaxed a little, and her eyes, once full of defiance, now held a hint of doubt. Dominic stood up, placing a hand on her shoulder. If you need space, I'll respect that. But remember, you're not alone. Not anymore. When he left, Andrea stared out at the garden, lost in her thoughts. Dominic's words echoed in her mind, challenging the barriers she had built over the years. As the weeks passed, Andrea began to feel more comfortable in Dominic's mansion. Her leg, now nearly recovered, allowed her to walk around the house more freely. Despite this, she still felt a certain discomfort at being there without contributing. Determined to change that, she decided to offer to help Donna Emilia, the house cook. One morning, Andrea appeared in the kitchen with a shy smile. Donna Emilia, a kind-faced woman with grey hair tied in a bun, was busy kneading bread dough. "Good morning, Donna Emilia. Do you need help with anything?" Andrea asked, tucking her hair behind her ear. The cook looked at her with a mixture of surprise and approval. "Why, Andrea? It's great to see you here. I don't know if you need it, but you can never have too much help. You can start by washing these vegetables." Andrea went to the sink, rolled up her sleeves, and got to work. Even though she had never cooked much in her life, she liked the feeling of doing something useful. While she washed the vegetables, Donna Emilia continued talking, as if she hadn't seen a friendly face for a long time. This kitchen has seen it all: parties, formal dinners, and even quiet mornings when it's just me and my radio for company. It's good to have someone to talk to. Andrea smiled. "And how long have you been working here?" "Ah, darling, it's been over 20 years. I watched Dominic grow up. He was a shy boy, but always polite. After he lost his parents, he changed a lot. He closed himself off in his own world. I think he's found some relief taking care of his job and the company, but there's still something missing." Andrea stopped for a moment, reflecting on Donna Emilia's words. "He is a good person. I think you care more than you let on." The cook smiled. "For sure. And I think his arrival brought a light that he didn't even know he needed." While working together, Andrea began to learn some simple recipes and cooking tricks from Donna Emilia. Little by little, the kitchen became a refuge for her. There, among pots and fresh ingredients, Andrea felt part of something, creating bonds with the cook that went beyond the simple act of preparing meals. One afternoon, as they were making apple pie, Andrea confessed, "I didn't know cooking could be so therapeutic. It's as if each cut, each mix, helps me organize my own thoughts." Donna Emilia laughed, with the wisdom of someone who had already gone through many phases of life. "The kitchen has that power, darling. It's where we transform simple things into something that nourishes and comforts. Just like you are doing with your life right now." Andrea smiled, feeling for the first time in a long time part of a family. The kitchen was not just a place to work. It was a space where she was learning to rebuild herself. The room was silent, with the soft light from the fireplace creating dancing shadows on the walls. Andrea settled down on the couch, her gaze fixed on the flames, but her mind distant, stuck in the painful memories of the past. The sound of footsteps echoed through the room, and Dominic entered, standing for a moment in the doorway, watching her curiously. "Are you well?" he asked, with a softness Andrea wasn't used to hearing. She looked up, and her eyes, for a moment, reflected a deep sadness. "I'm just thinking about what happened." Dominic approached, his expression serious. "Do you want to talk?" Andrea hesitated. She didn't know whether or not she wanted to relive those memories, but something in her, perhaps a need to share the weight of the pain, made her shake her head. "Yes, I think I need to." He sat down next to her, closer than she had imagined, but not close enough to invade her space. "Tell me what happened if you can," Dominic said, his voice quiet but filled with sincere empathy. Andrea swallowed, and a heavy silence fell between them. She looked down at her hands, took a deep breath, and began to speak, almost as if she were talking to herself. I was married to John. He was the one who gave me hope for a better life, but he was never the man I thought he was. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it would bring us closer together. But he didn't want to know. He didn't want the child. He didn't want the responsibility. It was like everything I felt was a burden to him. Andrea's voice wavered for a moment, and she looked down at the floor, unable to hold Dominic's gaze. John pulled away more and more. He abandoned me and took everything we had. Our home, our savings. And then, just like that, he left me alone, pregnant, and with nowhere to go. She paused, as if trying to process the pain of what she had said. I felt betrayed, like everything I believed in had been a lie. He was my everything, and suddenly he was a stranger. I was alone in the world, and my greatest pain was that he didn't care. Dominic listened intently, each word piercing the armor of indifference he had built up over the years. When she finished, he was silent for a moment, reflecting on what he had heard. "Andrea, I'm so sorry for everything you've been through," he said sincerely. "I know what it's like to be betrayed, to lose trust in someone you loved. I've been there too. I know what it's like to be left behind, just like that." Andrea looked at him in surprise. She hadn't expected him to be so open about his own suffering. "My story is a little different, but the pain is the same," he continued, his gaze distant. "When my parents passed away, I thought that at least the people I trusted would be there for me. But I was wrong. The family I had left was only interested in the inheritance. I saw them moving away, turning all the love they claimed to have into a facade of self-interest." Silence filled the room again, but this time it was a silence of mutual understanding. Andrea felt as if, for the first time, someone understood her pain in a profound way, without judgment, without trying to minimize her suffering. "I understand now," Andrea said, her voice soft but full of truth. "Betrayal isn't just about who's physically there for you, but who truly cares about you. John, he was never the man I thought he was, and now I see that I can't change that. I can only try to move on." Dominic looked at her, his gaze softer than she had imagined. "I know. The pain never goes away completely, but with time, it loses some of its strength. And you're stronger than you think, Andrea. You have an incredible heart, and even after everything you've been through, you're here, trying to start over." Andrea felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of comfort coming from someone who, although far away, was there, sharing her pain. For the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, she didn't feel alone. Maybe, after all, the wounds weren't forever. Maybe it was possible to start over. The sound of the doorbell interrupted the tranquility of the mansion. Andrea was in the kitchen, helping Donna Emilia prepare dinner, when she heard the shrill ringing. She exchanged glances with the cook, feeling a slight apprehension growing in her chest. Who could it be at this hour? Donna Emilia murmured, more to herself than to Andrea, and stood up to check. Instinctively, Andrea stood still, her gaze fixed on the counter. She had already known that John would eventually return, but she had never imagined it would be so soon, and much less like this. Donna Emilia's voice sounded again, this time louder. "Andrea, it's John. He's here." Andrea's heart raced. She didn't want to see him. She didn't want to relive the past. But she knew that perhaps this was the time to face him, once and for all. With a deep sigh, she got up from her chair and walked slowly to the door. When she opened it, there he was, with that arrogant and cold look, as if nothing had changed. "Andrea," he said, almost without emotion, "I've come to get what's mine." She was quiet for a moment, absorbing his words. Her ex-husband sounded the same as before, but with a tone of superiority, as if he still had the right to rule her life. "There's nothing of yours here anymore, John," Andrea replied firmly, but her voice betrayed a hint of her insecurity. John entered uninvited, as if the space was still his, as if he had some right to the house or her life. "You think you can ignore me, don't you? I'm the father of your child, and believe me, I have rights over this child. I'm not going to let you make all the decisions on your own." Dominic, who was upstairs, heard the echoes of the argument and hurried down, knowing something was up. When he reached the entrance hall, he saw the scene. John was standing with an imposing posture, and Andrea, visibly uncomfortable, was trying to remain calm. Dominic stepped forward without hesitation. "You no longer have anything to do with her life, John," Dominic said, his voice clear and authoritative. He positioned himself next to Andrea, placing a protective arm around her shoulders. "And as of now, you are leaving here." John turned quickly, surprised by Dominic's presence. His eyes flashed with anger. "Who do you think you are? This is my ex-husband, and you still have the audacity to threaten me." Dominic remained calm, but his voice was firm. "I am the one who will make sure she and the baby are safe. And if I need to, I can call the police to make sure you get off my property right now." Andrea was silent, but she felt a wave of gratitude and relief for being there with Dominic. He was defending her, protecting her from everything John represented in her life. But John, furious, did not seem willing to give up. "Do you think you will take my place? It will not be like that, Dominic. I will fight for my rights, and I will take what is mine." He took a threatening step towards Dominic. Dominic looked at John, without fear. "You no longer have rights over her or over the child, and if you continue with this attitude, I will not hesitate to take the necessary measures." The air became tense. Andrea felt a mixture of anger and sadness, seeing her ex-husband acting like that, as if nothing had happened, as if she were just an object to be fought over. Then she made a decision. "John, enough." Her voice rang out loud and clear, like never before. "You no longer have power over me. You left me when I needed you most, and now you have no right to threaten or manipulate me. I'm fine, and my son is fine, and that's all that matters." She looked at Dominic, who smiled softly, proud of her courage. John seemed to lose confidence for a moment, and the anger in his eyes was replaced by growing frustration. The tension in the room was palpable. Andrea, still shaken by John's unexpected visit, tried to process everything that had happened. She was at peace with her decision, but her heart was still pounding, the fear that John might come back to cause more trouble tormenting her. While she and Dominic were in the living room, John, with the look of someone who thought he was in control, began to show signs that he would not leave so easily. He was furious, but more than that, his usual arrogance seemed stronger than ever. Dominic, who was watching the scene attentively, knew that this moment would not be easy. John's presence there, after everything he had done, was not something that should be tolerated, not while he could still try to manipulate the situation. He turned to Andrea and, with a determined look, said, "Andrea, you don't need to worry anymore. He's leaving now." Andrea looked at him with a mixture of relief and gratitude, feeling safe in his company. She knew that Dominic was determined to protect her, but still, seeing John in her house made her uncomfortable. Her ex-husband had never been easy to deal with, and now that he was more desperate, she knew that he would not accept being thrown out easily. John, noticing the firmness in Dominic's voice, laughed sarcastically. "Oh, you really think you can kick me out like that? I have rights and you're not going to intimidate me with this Good Samaritan act. I'm the father of her child." Dominic didn't hesitate. With a frightening calm, he took a step forward. "I'm not intimidating anyone, but you're invading my home and trying to control her life again. It won't be like that. It's time for you to understand that your time in her life is over." The tension was so thick that Andrea could barely breathe. She knew how manipulative John could be, but something about Dominic's posture, his firmness, gave her a kind of security that she hadn't felt in a long time. John tried to maintain his superior posture, but the truth was that he no longer had any arguments. He looked from Dominic to Andrea, angry and with his fists clenched. "Do you think it's going to be that easy? I'm going to get my rights, and when I do, you'll see who's really in charge." "Are you threatening my family now?" Dominic asked with an even more threatening calm. His eyes, once soft, now held a hardness Andrea had never seen before. "I've already given you a chance to leave without any more trouble, John. But if you don't leave now, I'll make sure you never set foot in here again, and that will involve the police." John glared at him, defiant, but there was a spark of doubt in his eyes. He knew Dominic was serious, and the last thing he wanted was to get involved in a legal situation. With a heavy sigh, John shook his head, his pride hurt, and turned to leave. Before he walked out the door, he made one last comment, trying to keep himself in control, but lacking conviction. "This isn't going to stay like this, Dominic. I'll be back, you'll see." Dominic didn't answer, just watched him walk away. When the door closed with a bang, the room finally seemed to breathe again. Andrea looked at Dominic, her gaze filled with conflicting emotions. She felt exhausted, but at the same time a sense of liberation began to take over her heart. "Thank you," she said, her voice a little shaky but full of gratitude. "You don't know how much this means to me. I don't know what I would have done without you." Dominic smiled, though his eyes were still watchful. "I told you you weren't alone. It won't be easy, but as long as I'm here, you can count on me to protect you and your son. It's the least I can do." Andrea felt a wave of comfort and confidence wash over her heart. She knew that John, though a threat, would no longer have power over her life. And more importantly, she now had someone by her side who truly supported her, someone who treated her like a person and not a possession. She took a deep breath, now feeling secure that she was in good hands. "I didn't deserve this, Dominic. But at the same time, you showed me that there are good people in the world. I didn't know who to trust anymore." "You deserve more than you know, Andrea," he replied, with a soft smile that brought instant relief to the room. "And you'll start to see that from now on." As the two of them stood there in silence, a new feeling hung in the air. It wasn't just a feeling of victory, but also of a new beginning, of a possible future, where Andrea could finally find the peace she so desired for herself and her baby. She knew that, with Dominic by her side, the possibilities were endless. The sun had already set, and the mansion was silent, with the soft lights of the living room illuminating the room. Andrea was sitting on the couch, relaxing after a long day of recovery. She felt stronger now, as if she had overcome the barriers that life had imposed. She looked out the window, watching the stars, feeling at peace for the first time in a long time. Dominic entered the room, seemingly lost in his own thoughts, but when he saw her, his expression softened. He approached slowly and, sitting next to Andrea, spoke with a sincerity she had never heard before. "Andrea, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice calm but full of emotion. I admire you so much." Andrea looked at him, surprised, not fully understanding. "Admire? Why?" Dominic smiled slightly, as if he had expected this question. "Because you are stronger than anyone I've ever met. When I saw you on that street, hurt and lost, not knowing what the future held for you, I didn't imagine you could be so resilient. But you've gotten up day after day, facing everything that's come your way. I've seen it, and honestly, it amazes me. I don't know if I would have your strength if I were in your place." Andrea felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had always believed that her struggle was something she had to face alone. But hearing it from Dominic, a man she barely knew, made her heart warm in a way she hadn't expected. "Are you saying this because of me?" she asked, her voice shaking a little, still not believing his words. "Yes," he replied, his gaze deep and sincere. "You are incredibly strong, Andrea. It's not just your physical strength, but your inner strength. You didn't give up even when everything seemed impossible. I see that in you every day. And I admire myself more and more." Andrea was silent for a moment, absorbing his words. She never imagined that someone, especially someone like Dominic, a man with a life so different from hers, could look at her this way. She had always thought that her struggle was invisible to others, something she had to bear alone. But now, someone saw her differently. "Do you really admire me?" she asked, her eyes brimming with tears, a little confused by the feelings that were beginning to well up inside her. Dominic nodded, his gaze warm. "Yes, Andrea. I admire your courage. You have no idea how much your fight touched me. You could have given up at any moment, but you didn't. And that's a rare thing. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll be by your side. Always." Dominic's words were filled with a rare sincerity, something that touched Andrea's heart. She had never felt so much support from anyone. She had always been left behind, as if she wasn't worthy of receiving the affection or attention of others. But now, someone saw her. Someone really saw her. I don't know what to say," Andrea murmured, her voice breaking. "I never imagined someone would look at me like that." Dominic placed his hand gently over hers, his gesture soft and comforting. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know how important you are. And to me, you are so much more than just someone who has had a hard time. You are someone who has found the strength to start over, even when it seemed impossible." Andrea smiled shyly, feeling a warmth grow inside her chest. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she felt hopeful. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could trust someone, that she could build something good for herself and the baby she was expecting. "I admire you too, Dominic," she said, finally finding the courage to speak. "You have been the person I never knew I needed. I can't thank you enough for everything you have done for me." Dominic looked into her eyes, his expression soft and full of understanding. "You don't need to thank me. What matters is that you have a chance to start over, and I'll be here to make sure you have all the support you need." They looked at each other in silence for a moment, the words and gestures of support creating an even stronger bond between them. Andrea knew that despite the adversities, she had found something precious, someone who saw her not as a victim, but as a strong woman capable of starting over. "Thank you for believing in me, Dominic," she said, her sincere smile lighting up the room. "You gave me a new chance to believe in myself." Dominic smiled back, and the two of them stood there together, sharing a moment of connection and understanding, that would change their lives forever. Night had fallen, and Dominic's mansion was quieter than usual. The soft sound of background music and the soft lighting of the lamps created a cozy atmosphere. Andrea sat on the couch, watching the flames in the fireplace, lost in her thoughts. Her heart was beating faster than usual, as if something in the air was about to change. Dominic entered the room, his steady footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. He watched her for a moment, as if he were deliberating on something important. His eyes were deep, filled with emotion. He approached Andrea and sat down next to her, sighing deeply, as if he were trying to gather the courage to speak. "Andrea," he began, his voice deep but softly charged with feeling. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been feeling for some time now, but I didn't know how to express it." Andrea looked at him curiously, her gaze intent. She had grown accustomed to his presence over the past few months, but there was something about his posture today that seemed different. What did he want to say? Dominic looked at her, his eyes shining with an intensity that Andrea couldn't ignore. He touched her hand lightly, making her turn completely to him. "Andrea," he repeated, more firmly now, I love you. I love you in a way I never imagined possible. You came into my life in such an unexpected and yet perfect way that I honestly don't know what my life would be like without you." Dominic's words fell like a gentle wave over Andrea. She didn't know what to say, what to feel. Her heart felt like it wanted to jump out of her chest, and a whirlwind of emotions invaded her mind. She never expected to hear those words from Dominic, especially after everything she had been through. She felt a growing warmth in her chest, a sense of relief, of belonging. Do you love me?" Andrea managed to ask, her voice shaking as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Yes," Dominic replied, squeezing her hand gently. "I know it was something that grew slowly, but now I can't ignore it anymore. When you came into my life, I was lost, trapped in a cycle of selfishness and loneliness. But you, Andrea, you brought something special to my life. You made me see the world in a different way. With you, I no longer feel alone. I feel complete." Andrea felt a tear run down her face, not from sadness, but from pure emotion. Dominic's words touched her soul so deeply that she could barely process them. She had been through so much pain, and now somehow it felt like life was offering her something she had never imagined. Genuine, unconditional love. "Dominic," she said, her voice full of gratitude and, at the same time, of emotion. I love you too. I never imagined I would be able to love again after everything I've been through. But you made me believe in love again. You showed me that I deserve to be loved." Dominic smiled, the most genuine, loving smile Andrea had ever seen. He ran his hand through her hair, the gesture soft and protective. "You deserve all the love, Andrea, and I will give you all the love I have, every day of my life." They stood there together in silence for a moment, simply looking at each other, knowing that somehow their lives had changed forever. The love they shared was no longer a secret, no longer a distant hope. It was something real, something that united them in a way that no adversity could separate. Dominic, with a look full of sincerity, added, "I've never been a person of grand gestures, but now I understand that life is made of these moments, of these feelings. And with you, Andrea, I want to build a future together." Andrea smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She knew that, no matter how uncertain the future was, the love she and Dominic shared was something solid, something she could trust. They had a chance to build something wonderful, not only for the two of them, but for the baby that was to come. "I'm ready for the future, Dominic," Andrea said, her voice firm but full of tenderness. "With you by my side, I know we can face anything." Dominic hugged her, pressing her against his chest, as if to protect this moment, this feeling. Me too, Andrea. Me too. After weeks of living together, sharing moments and a connection that seemed to grow with each passing day, Dominic began to clearly realize what he already knew deep down in his heart. He wanted to spend the rest of his life with Andrea. Their relationship, which had begun in such an unusual way, was turning into something profound and transformative for both of them. It was on a quiet afternoon, when the sun was gilding the sky and the cool wind was caressing the gardens of the mansion, that Dominic decided it was time to take the next step. He and Andrea were sitting on the garden bench, with a cup of tea in their hands, talking about dreams and plans for the future. Andrea, with her usual calm, talked about the details of the life she imagined for the baby, but something was different in Dominic's eyes. He watched her intensely, as if he were absorbing every word and every gesture she made. And at that moment, he knew that what he felt was more than just affection. It was love. "You know, Andrea, you've taught me more about life than anything I've ever learned before," Dominic said, his voice low but full of meaning. Andrea looked at him, a little surprised, but with a soft smile on her lips. "Me? I've done nothing but try to move on, Dominic." Dominic laughed lightly but didn't look away. "That's not all. You showed me the true meaning of living, of having someone by your side, of trusting and giving yourself over to what's good. And that's why—" He paused for a moment, his heart racing, and took Andrea's hand in his. "I can't imagine my life without you anymore. I want to spend the rest of my days by your side, by our family's side. Andrea, will you marry me?" The words hung in the air, so charged with emotion, so full of a truth that neither of them could deny. Andrea was speechless for a second, her heart pounding, perhaps from the impact of the question, perhaps from the happiness that invaded her chest. She never imagined she would be living this moment, after everything she had been through. But there she was, being asked to marry a man who had somehow always been by her side, even when things seemed impossible. "Yes, Dominic," she finally answered, her voice breaking. "Yes, I do." Dominic smiled, relieved, and hugged her so tenderly that Andrea felt her eyes fill with tears. Their love, which had grown through hardships and new beginnings, had now become an eternal promise. That simple yes would change everything in a way that not even they could fully understand. A few weeks later, the wedding took place in a discreet and intimate way, exactly as Andrea had wanted. There were no big parties or ostentatious celebrations. What mattered was the meaning of that moment for both of them. A deep commitment in which love and trust became the basis of everything. The ceremony took place in the garden of the mansion, under a clear blue sky, with only a few people present, only close friends and family. It was a quiet, unhurried morning, with a gentle wind bringing a sense of peace. The venue was decorated with simple but beautiful flowers, and the atmosphere was one of total harmony. Andrea was radiant. She wore a simple dress made of delicate lace, which fell softly over her body. Her eyes, shining with happiness, sought Dominic's as soon as she entered, and it was in that gaze, deep and full of love, that she found everything she had ever wanted. Dominic, waiting for her, was equally moved. His dark suit fit perfectly, but what really made him shine at that moment was the presence of Andrea by his side. During the ceremony, the words exchanged were simple, but loaded with a meaning that they both understood perfectly. They promised to care for each other, to support each other in adversity, and above all, to love each other with a commitment that would transcend the difficulties of the world. When the celebrant announced that they were now husband and wife, Dominic looked at Andrea and, with an emotion he could not hide, said, "I knew that life would never be the same after meeting you, Andrea. Now I know that this is exactly what I want forever. You, me, and our future. With you, every day is more beautiful." Andrea smiled, touched by the words, and replied, "I never imagined that I would have this chance, Dominic. That life would give me a second chance to be happy. Now I know that, with you, anything is possible." The kiss that sealed the marriage was soft but full of promise. The sound of applause and laughter around them was just a distant echo because, at that moment, nothing else mattered but the two of them. They were there, together, ready to build a future of love and companionship. That intimate ceremony, simple but full of meaning, sealed the love that arose from an unexpected situation, showing that sometimes the best chapters in life are the ones that begin when you least expect them. Was this story exciting for you? Comment below with your opinion. It is very important to us. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell. By doing so, you will be informed of our next stories that will be posted here. Now 2 videos will appear. Choose one and watch. You will be surprised.